Hi, I'm Jake Ziemba, and welcome to our first ever book review. Today we're going to be looking at Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, the tactics, routines, and habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers. Funny story of how I actually picked up this book for the first time. I was a little late coming around to it, but fortunately enough for me, I was studying for exams at my local university, and as you can see, the cover is very bright on that book, and it actually caught my eye. So I walk over to it, and it's very silent in the library, and I gently lift the book off its stand, and all of a sudden, crash, bang, it falls to the ground. Everyone stares at me, but thank God this happened. I have been so fortunate and so lucky to have found this book. And today I'm going to be sharing with you the 10 best ideas from this book and how they can help you. Number 1, the first tip out of this book is going to be improve tools at the top of the funnel. Now what this means is there are certain skills and things that we do in life that have a cascading effect on many different areas. Things like reading, for example. If we can learn to read faster, that's going to speed up a lot of different processes that we have to go through on a daily basis. It's a nice easy one to improve on. I'll be doing a video later on, so keep your eye out for that on how to improve your reading speed and different techniques associated with that. But first tip, just improve tools at the top of the funnel. Tip number 2, having a routine. Now this is super important. The first thing that you do in the morning sets the tone for the rest of the day. So one of the key things that you need to do is win the morning, and therefore you're going to win the day. So the first thing that you should do when you wake up, for me personally, is get that cup of coffee brewing. But right after that, I like to go into a deep 5 to 10 minute meditation. And this is very important because about 80% of the people interviewed in this book displayed some type of mindfulness practice. Now that can be meditation for you. It could be something else. For example, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he does a workout in the morning, and Wim Hof, who we're going to do a bonus feature on at the end of the video, so stick around, he does a cold ice bath in the morning. The second thing that should be in your routine is some type of journaling. Now, there's a couple of different types of journaling that Tim Ferriss recommends. One of them would be the 5-minute journal or morning pages. Morning pages consists of writing 3 pages of whatever is in your head at that time. It's called getting that monkey mind out. So you're just going to spit out whatever is in your head. It can be complaining, it can be what you're thinking about, it can be what you want to accomplish that day. Now, 5-minute journal is something more that I ascribe to, and I do a text-based version of that. It's just describing, it helps me describe what I want to get done that day, and really gets me focused and prepared for the day. Now, you might have had a good morning, but you have to get to bed to get ahead for the next day. So when we're getting ready for bed, there's something that I call the bedtime cocktail that really gets you there. So about an hour before I go to bed at night, I get what's called apple cider vinegar and pour in 2 tablespoons of that into a coffee mug. Add about 10 ounces of water, put that in the microwave, heat it up so it's kind of a hot tea, and then I take a tablespoon of raw honey and put that in my apple cider vinegar and water mixture and stir it around real good, and it forms a apple cider tea almost. And don't worry, it's not that bad tasting. It truly isn't. You will feel a bit of a burn in here in the throat a little bit. Very palatable, and you get used to that burn after a while. So those are the 3 things that you're definitely going to want to incorporate into your routine during the day if you want to attain success. Tip number 3, the double threat technique to success by Scott Adams. You can find him in our book on page 261. What this is spelling out is basically that it's very unlikely that you or I are going to be the next Michael Jordan of basketball or Tom Brady of football. It's unlikely that we're going to be the absolute best at something. So let's be a bit more reasonable. There's a couple of things that you and I are pretty good at. One of them, for example, that Scott Adams in this book recommends is public speaking. Work towards making this something you're good at. And so if you can become in the top 25% of a given activity like public speaking and maybe 1 or 2 others, and try and incorporate those 2, and even better, if you enjoy all those activities, you can really turn that into a blossoming career that you're going to enjoy for a long time. Tip number 4, here we go, 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. Interesting little side note on this guy, he really is fascinating, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting on his profile was that he has what's called a death clock, and while that sounds kind of morbid, it's actually really interesting and a great motivational tool. So what it is basically is, there's websites out there so you can go ahead and Google that, but you put in your birth, your outlook on life, whether or not you smoke, how often you drink, and it gives you approximate length of how long you should live. It's interesting to play around with optimism versus neutrality and see how that actually affects the longevity of your life. See, as an optimist, I am approximated to live about 87 years, but getting into 1,000 True Fans and what this really means. Okay, so this is a marketing strategy, right? It might be attractive and cool and something to brag about if you're able to sell something to the masses. 100 million people buy your product, and you might make $100 million if all you have to do is sell a product for $1. but that's not a great way to market, and it's very unlikely. In fact, it's better to find 10 people, just 10 people, that's all we're looking for, who really jive with you and form a tribe with them, right? They're going to be the ones who are consistently talking about you, appreciating your project. Find your niche, right? And then work towards building that tribe and really forming a group. Interact with them, communicate, and that's what we're all looking to do. And those 10 people are going to do the marketing for you. They're going to be telling people all about your products, what you do, and your product can be YouTube, it can be t-shirts, it can be whatever you want, a blog. For example, my blog will be linked below in case you're curious and want to go check it out. But yeah, so these 10 people are going to build your network, and that'll get you up to 100 and 1,000, and you just have to keep working at that and truly find those people that you connect with and who are really interested in what you are doing. Number 5, and the last one I'm going to be able to do on this hand, this is Doing Is Everything by Derek Sivers. You can find him on page 184. He has a very famous quote that says, "If information were everything, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs." And so what he means by this quote and this principle, that doing is everything, is that you can't just watch a YouTube video about something and expect your life to change. You can't just read a book. You have to take these principles that we're providing for you and try and incorporate those into your own life. It sounds easier than it really is. Tip number 6, en français, 6. This one is just show up. While this seems a little contrary to what I just said, let me elaborate a little bit. So when Tim Ferriss is walking up to do his podcast, he sits down, gets in his chair, gets his microphone all set up. He knows that all he has to do is just talk. And this confidence comes from doing countless hours of research, preparation, and finally practice, right? So when I'm producing one of these YouTube videos, I take the same attitude. All I have to do is just sit down in my chair, launch my programs, and get ready to go. But that comes from writing in my notebook about exactly what I'm going to talk about. So take this approach to a lot of different areas of life, because it all comes down to the preparation you do before the big day. Tip number 7 is just say no. While this is a principle in the book, it is also exemplified by Mr. Warren Buffett, who I actually wrote a letter to, and is a personal hero of mine. I wrote the letter back in 8th grade, and he replied. But back to just say no. So your time is valuable. My time is valuable. So if something doesn't make you say heck yes, if it's not a slam dunk yes, if it doesn't make you jump out of your chair, then just say no. Because simply, I wouldn't be making YouTube videos if I didn't think it was a valuable use of my time, or blogging, or reading, or doing all kinds of different things, and you should really try and apply that same principle to your own life. Tip number 8, and yeah, I need a new method to do this. Okay, so this one is Good by Jocko Willink. This one is especially interesting to me, especially because if you've ever looked at Jocko Willink or read anything about him, dude's a total badass. And it's interesting to get kind of into his head. So what this is saying is basically, whenever something bad happens, crummy, you didn't get the job, you didn't get the scholarship you wanted, you didn't get into the university that you were looking to, your first response should be good. And then you're going to give a rationalization of why that's good. So for example, I really wanted this job at our local marina, but I didn't get it. And so my response should have been, good, now I can get something that's going to be even better. And fortunately enough for me, that's exactly how it worked out. I gave it another few weeks, and I did get a different job at a YMCA that has been absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed working there. So this tip is all about looking on the brighter side of things, and life is really just a series of ups and downs, and so whenever you're in one of those downs, you want to look to the next peak. Tip number 9, or almost there, is Challenge All Assumptions by Brian Johnson. Now this one is super interesting because it comes with a little story, and so let's see if you can get the idea behind this after I tell you a little story. So there's 5 monkeys, right, and they're in a room, and a ladder is set up in that room with a set of bananas on top, and these are some pretty special looking bananas. I mean, they're yellow, they're delicious, and so a monkey tries climbing the ladder, and all of a sudden a jet of cold water hits it in the face, and it's knocked off the ladder. And so this process continues for a few times, and eventually all the monkeys learn not to climb the ladder. They're going to get hit in the face with a jet of cold water. And so next what the scientists do is they take a monkey out and replace it with a new one. And so as that new monkey gets into the atmosphere, it tries to climb up the ladder, but all of its friends pull it back down because they don't want it to get hit in the face with that water. And so this process is repeated several times until all 5 monkeys were never hit in the face with water, and they still pull each other back down whenever one tries to climb up the ladder. And so what's really interesting about this is that their assumption that they're going to get hit in the face with water may not even be true anymore. They don't even know that assumption simply because they never had that experience. They only had the social impact, the social constraints placed on them by the other monkeys. And so to challenge all assumptions is basically saying, don't go by the status quo. Don't just follow norms just because they exist. Feel free to dream and dream beyond the square of life. Tip number 10 and our last one. Here we go. Failure is Not Durable by Robert Rodriguez. There's also a story that goes with this one. But this one is especially interesting to me, and it goes very well with Good by Jocko Willink. And so the story that is with this one is that Robert Rodriguez was directing or producing a film called 4 Rooms. It's unlikely that you've heard of it because it was a self-proclaimed flop. It didn't turn out well for him. And so it was a failure, right? And that happens to all of us. It's not just him. But oftentimes failure is the fertile ground that success can spring from. And so what was great about this failure for Mr. Rodriguez was that 2 things sprang from it. Sin City, which I'm sure you heard of, and Spy Kids as well, both which were major successes. And so if he hadn't had this failure, this experience that wasn't the best, maybe we wouldn't have these 2 successes. And so keep in mind that failure is not going to last forever, and oftentimes from failure springs success. Bonus features, here we go. This is 11 on our video, and we're going to be talking about Wim Hof. It's going to be a little bit of a profile spotlight. So this is the Iceman. He holds 26 world records, most of them pertaining to ice or the cold or a mix of those 2. My personal favorites that he has done, climbing to the death zone of Everest in not a fluffy jacket, not warm snow pants, wearing nothing but a pair of shorts. That is absolutely ridiculous, and he attributes his massive success to his ability to control his breathing. You can check out his website. There'll be a link down below in the description. And the best part about all of this is he proclaims that we can have complete and utter control over our body and really take it to the next level just by controlling our breathing. And so go check out his website. Very interesting guy. He's on page 41 of Tools of Titans. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment below about either what your favorite one was, if you had a different top idea from the book, and what books you think I should be looking at next. Catch you guys later.